the show officially, as we try to do every week. We are live. We've got a lot. This show has sort of lost control. We've lost control. Marnie and I have lost control of the show. This is KHOP88. It is Tuesday night.
Yes.
Marnie, Portland, Oregon.
Yes.
We're just talking about Maine, so we need to be specific. Marnie in Portland, Oregon. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. Joining us this week from Southwest Minneapolis, Dan Trockman. From Kansas City, okay, Missouri or Kansas?
Kansas.
Kansas City, Kansas.
I got in trouble for that just the other day.
It's everything. Dean Olufson. And also joining us this week, of course, Ramon Reyna, our beloved social worker and class advisor, maybe, and art teacher, and maybe not a lot of people remember this, but I sure do, assistant cross-country skiing coach Brad Norla.
Head girls cross-country ski coach. And we won the state championship too. I gotta get all these plugs in I can, you know, at my age.
I remember I skied one year, and I remember there was a line that you used a few times that year, and it was, "I'm an art teacher," as a way of like fending off Pat Lannon's tutorial regime. Okay, well,
very perceptive.
So Brad's on the schedule in a couple of weeks. Wanted to show up and see how we do this, and
yes,
you're welcome to throw in whenever. Ramon, of course, several time guest, drinking Cuban coffee there in his basement lair, and but we'll start with Dan and Dean. Great to see you guys. Typically what we ask people is connect the dots for us, give us the Cliff's Notes version of what happened to your life between Northrop Auditorium in June of 1988 and today. Dan, you go first.
Well, I can do that. First of all, I got you all. I've got Diet Shasta. When's the last time you saw Shasta? we were eating dinner tonight, and my daughter called it Shasta, and I'm like, no. Shasta. He tried to upscale it on me.
Right.
Don't ever do that again. So Northrop Auditorium. Wow. Did I graduate? I did. And the amazing thing is, I want to start with a story first.
Okay.
Sure.
And then we can connect the dots. And Ramon probably remembers this because he was hanging out at Hopkins High School when I got a job there. So after college, we can get all that later. I was teaching science, and I taught for 4 years at a school in Minnetonka, and thought, oh, there must be more to life. So I applied for a job at Hopkins High School, and this was a field environmental science program. It was just a dream for me, and this was the Freshwater Academy program, if you remember that, Ramon. Oh, and yes. It was with Gary Gray and Gene Kremen and that whole crew. And where are we going here? Oh yeah. And one of the people interviewing me was none other than Del Bosacker. And Del was one of my favorite teachers in high school, and he really kind of turned me on to science. And this must have been 3 or 4 months after I was teaching at Hopkins, and we were in a science department meeting. And at the end of the meeting, Del stands up and points to me and he goes, "Trockman." What? Oh my God. I haven't heard you talk to me like that since 10th grade. He's like, "I just remembered something from when you were in my class, and had I remembered it during our interview, I never would have hired you." So that's pretty much how my life has been since high school.
Wait a second. What is the thing he remembered?
He wouldn't tell me.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you were
probably something to do with a skeleton pelvis or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I took anatomy with him. So,
yeah. So you were a teacher. We'll get back to that because that's going to be a rich source of information. But you're not a teacher anymore. What do you do now? And,
I'm not. So
what's-
I taught for 25 years.
Wow.
And I don't miss school politics. I don't miss school budgets. I don't miss committee meetings. As a matter of fact, I've never been in a committee meeting since I left teaching. People are like, what's a committee? Except for when I'm on boards, and then I feel like I'm back in school. But I work for a company called Gardner Builders here in Minneapolis. We are a 190 some odd person commercial construction firm, and I am the IT department. I'm the IT director. So very different turn, but certainly one of the skills I picked up while teaching, and I'm using it. It's fun.
Fantastic.
I build giant towers. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, what's the big building? What's Gardner? What do they build?
Well, two big ones right now, I suppose, that we know in Minneapolis. We have offices in Milwaukee, so we do some big work in Chicago as well, and we're working in a tower in Colorado right now as well. But the Gateway Tower, we're doing some big work on. That's a new 38th floor tower on Hennepin Avenue, and we just finished 1 million square feet of office space renovation at the Dayton's building. So we just spent 6 years redoing that, and that's absolutely massive and beautiful. And that opens to the public in a couple of weeks. Go look, check it out.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
All right, Dean Olufson, checking in from Kansas City, Kansas. Give us the trajectory of your life from high school to now.
Hard to synopsize, right? I should have done my homework. So went to the University of Minnesota and met my wife there. We got married in '94. We graduated, and I had never really gone anywhere. And so a lot of my friends went to different places, came back, kind of regaled me with all these stories. My parents never traveled, never went anywhere. So it happened that my wife's brother had moved down here to Kansas City, and we kind of liked it, and we're like, let's move somewhere. Not that we didn't like Minneapolis. It's not like, we didn't want to live there, but it's just go someplace different, So we decided to move down here, and we thought we'd be here about like 3 years. That was 27 years ago. So we're kind of stuck and absolutely love it. But since then, huge thanks to, I really got to connect with Brad after this call or something, but in all honesty, I know it sounds kind of sappy, but I owe my entire career to that man. I have been a graphic designer ever since, and I've had a hugely successful graphic design career, and it was because of Brad and him feeding into me and taking care of me when I was a student at Hopkins. So huge thanks, Brad.
That's fantastic.
Make me cry.
What kind of graphic design work do you do? What do you work for a firm? Tell us a little bit about how that looks.
Sure. As you know, before, when we went to university, when we went to college, there was no internet, which is hilarious talking to people about that. It's like, oh, you went to school, there was no internet. So I was doing traditional graphic design. I was doing, mock-ups and drawings, and I was doing pre-press stuff, color keys and match prints. These are all things that Brad knows. I was working in a pre-press house and worked at a sign shop as well, making huge signs for the Big 12 that came into town. And so I was designing those. And then I got a job at Sprint, which was headquartered here in Kansas City, and started getting into web design. And at the time, they sent us to school for just about everything, learning how to code, learning how to, do digital design, all that kind of stuff. I spent 13 years working at a company called Garmin, which is based here in town, the GPS company. I was their web design manager. I floated around a little bit after that, and I am now at a company called Cerner, and I'm doing UX for medical devices. So it's design, psychology, user interface kind of stuff. So,
Dean, what do you remember about Brad's class?
I remember this like vividly. I was not a very, very good student at all. And I think Brad knew that, and we were drawing, it was, I don't know what you call them. They're like willow sticks, right? Like the graphite willow sticks.
Yes.
And we were drawing on, newspaper. It's that real flimsy.
We were standing up, or were we doing a long stick standing?
Yeah. And so we were doing that, and I was doing what every kid does, and they're like trying to trace, and I was doing this. Brad took it and put it in his fist, and he just looked at it and he goes, "This is the way you draw with this thing, and just kind of get in there and do this." And my mind just exploded. I was like, wow, this is what art is. This is so great. And like from that day on, I was completely like intrigued with art, because art became something more than just copying or tracing. Like art had a life, art had emotion.
You were free.
Right.
You were free.
I remember that moment vividly. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, changed my life.
Wonderful. The interesting thing about your career as a a computer a UX designer, though, is that a lot, I would think, when going back to the days when we were in high school, the kids who hung out in the art department, we've had plenty of them on the show so far, were definitely the artistic kids. They were not the technology kids. They were not likely to take computer programming and stuff. Those were, right before the internet, especially, those were two different tribes.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in your career where you had that sort of aha moment, like, oh, I can put these things together?
Kind of. I think it was just, the advent of the internet, and then, kind of the advent of like graphic design coming into that. I've been a huge fan of, Apple from the early days, and, from the top down, they've had a huge importance of design, and just, it really comes down to the principles of design. The principles that I learned in high school are still the principles that I use and teach today. Like, I've been a manager several times and had young people kind of come through. I've been a adjunct professor and taught design, and the things that I'm teaching them are the things that Brad taught me. They don't change. They're all universal. It doesn't matter what we use.
I've been thinking about this too. As I onboard at work people who are younger and younger and now approaching the age of my kids, and the things they say and the things they ask and do. And, I, along with you, Dean, and all the people we still hang out with, definitely, from that art crowd, and all of us are doing something technical and managerial and, somewhat allied corporate, which is kind of funny, right? Because we certainly never picture ourselves there, but same thing, right? Like, I spent every possible moment, sometimes to my detriment, in high school in the art department. And my senior year, I was at MCAD for that second semester. And then I started at the University of Minnesota in the fine arts program, and, fell in love with science, right? So I feel like I've got like 3 years of a BFA behind me, and I've got the two BSs. It's kind of a funny thing to say, in geology and in biology, and then a master's degree in learning technology, right? So these things that you never would see together, but I use all that stuff every single day.
Yeah.
Like when I have to work my way out of a hard technical program, I get a group together and I say, I always say things like, let's start with the end in mind. This design language, right? And I think it's that design language that allows me to, not be nearly as stressed out as those people and do things really differently, and have a lot more fun with it. Maybe I think that's what we learned as artists, like how to enjoy the things we create instead of just having them as products that are saleable.
Whoa, this is so interesting. Okay, so I was not missing out because I was hanging out with Ramon in the student government class. But yes. So Dan, you were in the art. You took art classes too at Hopkins High.
Yeah. I think even when I was supposed to be in other classes, I was mainly throwing pots, right? So I was always, with Mel Jacobson, and stayed in touch with him for a long time. But I haven't talked to him in years, but stayed in touch with him a long time. But very much so a mentor, and it was it's probably what ruined art education for me when I got to not MCAD. MCAD was great, but when I got to the University of Minnesota, and they're like, this is how you do things, and they were super boring, and you're like, where's the stories? When is he gonna tell us some stories? Which is why everybody loved Mel, right? Whether they were true or not, he always had stories while he was throwing pots for you. It was just a real nurturing thing, and there was nothing like that at the U when I was there. It was all so dry and competitive, and not nearly as much fun. So I grew tired of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I often wonder if it had to do, and maybe Brad, you can talk about this, but I often wonder if it had to do with those rooms, like the way that they were kind of, it was a part of the school. You could kind of, Dan was always hanging out with Mel throwing pots. I was hanging out with like you and Vern in the other rooms doing whatever, but Dan and I would always hang out, and it was just this kind of
Well, it was an open studio.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great studio, and you would always,
yeah,
you would always allow your students in there to work whenever they wanted to.
It was a suite.
Yeah,
a suite. It costs you more money to have a suite, than just a room. Yeah, it was all open. That was the beauty of the whole thing. The art department, all those rooms were wide open to the gallery area. And it just felt so good. You weren't closed in. You could, if you got bored or something, you go see what Mel's doing, throwing pots, or it was great. It was a great setup.
Yeah.
And the three of you were so different. You and Vern and Mel, and really complemented each other as well. And that was, I had fun watching that as a kid. I mean, very different people, and you guys had different backgrounds, and you'd often bicker with each other in a good way because it was productive. But it was there was some synergy between the three of you guys there in those 4 rooms for sure.
Brad, can you explain that long stick exercise that Dean was talking about, and sort of what you hope kids will get out of that?
Drawing is eye-hand coordination. So if you take a kid out of his comfort zone and you make him stand up with a 3-foot stick over a 6-foot piece of paper, and you have a model there, and you say, okay, now we're going to do a contour drawing of this model, just stick your stick in the ink and let it go. It's a very freeing. You'd be surprised the beautiful, beautiful lines and that you get from that. The ink runs out, then you dip it in, and it gets really dark, and it's so expressive. It was a wonderful thing.
And that's what kind of opened up art to me, is that you have this kind of shallow view of art when you're a kid, of just they're pretty pictures. And what Brad was trying to teach me is that it was expressive, and you could put emotion into it. It was about more than just what was on the page. It was like what you were trying to say. And so that's why I fell in love with people like Rothko and Helen Frankenthaler and stuff like that, and I just started doing that myself. It was great.
Yeah.
Are either you, Dan or Dean, do you do your own art for fun or for your own purposes at home these days?
I haven't produced objects that I would consider pieces of art in a long time. But as Dean knows, both of us take a lot of photos, so we have a lot of that together. And but I'm always, it's weird because I don't feel like I've forgotten how to do it or forgotten to do it, but I think about it in everything I do. You know what I mean? I really have design in mind in everything that I do, whether it's woodwork, when I'm doing that kind of thing, or designing something with my kids. My kids like to make things, and my son is studying to be an engineer, is always designing things, and he always asks me about how things look and why they look a certain way, and we get into that. So I believe I think like an artist, but I'm so busy. I'm just lucky I brush my teeth. So it's like I don't make time for it. But I'm okay, I'm only 52 or whatever, but my wife and I, we spend the majority of our conversations about retirement. We're just setting ourselves up for 8 years of talking about retiring. I know.
Yeah, and you being busy has nothing to do with having 3 kids, right? So
yeah,
I've got 1, he's got 3. So.
Well, thank you, Dean.
But I was just going to say, I hope when I'm not working all the time, when I'm not chasing my kids around or trying to afford college, that I get back to making objects of art where, I'm producing things. I'm sure I will. I haven't forgotten how.
Well, Dean, you brought up an important question that Karen Hintermeister, Karen Koski, always encourages us to ask. So I will start with you, Dean. Do you have any young humans or pets that you take care of?
I have one young human. However, he's not so young anymore. He's a senior in high school, so 17. He goes here to Shawnee Mission East, which I got to give a plug, and Sam will appreciate this, but there's this thing in here in Kansas City called Big Slick, and it's a huge, I don't know if you may have heard of it, but it's like Rob Riggle and, you know, all those guys from, oh gosh, what, Jason Sudeikis, Rob Riggle,
Saturday Night Live, yeah.
they all, like, I live actually in Overland Park, Kansas. It's a suburb, but that's where they all went to high school. And so all of those guys are from here. And every year they get together with the Royals and they have this, you know, kind of foundation that helps out Children's Mercy. But anyways, he went to a competing, my son goes to a competing school against Paul Rudd, like their rival schools. But yeah, he's a senior getting ready for college. I've been married to my wife for about 27 years now. And we have 2 Aussies. We have a blue Merle and a red Merle Aussie. So.
And Dan, do you have humans and animals?
It's got to take his.
I had to unmute. I'm sorry. I'm new at this. I'm only on Zoom 3 hours a day.
Right. Same old
yes,
Trockman.
but before I yes.
Haven't changed a bit.
No. And ask my wife. I'm 12. Before I talk about my kids, I want to brag about Dean's son though. Dean's son won the state championship in tennis.
Whoa!
Last year. I know. Isn't that nuts?
That's nuts.
They won twice.
Dean never played tennis a day in his life, and he's got this son who's just like a pro. He's a very sweet kid. By the way, Dean, your family's lovely. Yes.
Good old bro.
I have 2 children. My son Isaac is a sophomore at Michigan Technological Institute. He's studying to be a mechanical engineer, and he can do math. So it was something I never I faked my way all the way into. Another good story into calculus, but never got through it. As I said, we'll get back to my kids. When I was at University of Minnesota.
You take control, Dan. You take it. You tell us what you need to say. So
no, it's just you'll discover the randomness in my head. So when I was at the University of Minnesota, I had this awesome sculpture professor. His name was Leaf Brush. You guys know of him. He was a trip at University of Minnesota Duluth. He named himself. He was an orphan, and they said, "What do you want to be called?" And he's like, "I want to be Leaf Brush." So anyways, Leaf Brush was he was a great mentor of mine when I was at the university, but I had already moved to the science programs there. But for some reason, they forgot about me, and they never reassigned me advisor who was in the science department. So every time I got to a class I couldn't handle, Leaf would just say, "They'll never have you do anything in calculus signed off. You don't need calculus. Physics, Physics 1 is fine for a geology major." So he was awesome. He let me graduate college. Anyhow, as long as I replaced him with our classes, he would do that. So I would never have made it through had I had all those calculus courses. But my son Isaac has figured it out. He's doing great. Lovely child. And my daughter Haley is a sophomore at Southwest High School. And 2 great kids. And I like them especially because they like to ski. And that's what we go do all the time. So
downhill or cross country, since we have Coach Brad here.
So when I was at Minnetonka, I coached cross country. But since then, starting my first day at Hopkins, I've been coaching downhill skiing, so alpine slalom here in the state of Minnesota at the high school level for 27 years now. Wow. I'm on the hill almost every day in the winter. So for 7 years while I was at Hopkins, I coached skiing. And then for 10 years after I left there, it was kind of funny being a teacher at Blake and coaching the Hopkins team. That was good. And I'm still coaching. So now I coach the Southwest High School team, the Minneapolis team. And my daughter skis for them. And my son skis for them. And
nice.
So that's what we do. We ski.
Nice.
So Dan and everyone, I have a soft spot for teachers. So Dan, I'm trying to encapsulate all of my thoughts in one question.
Oh, cool. do it.
What was it like to teach at Hopkins High when you were a graduate of Hopkins High?
It wasn't weird at all.
No.
I thought it was going to be, but the staff at Hopkins were awesome, and it was a time when the school was gaining kids from all over the Twin Cities. We had a superintendent who was spending way too much money, and the school was doing all kinds of just really cool stuff, and it was really a great time to be there. I left when the whole fell out of the budget because I was offered a job as the assistant director of technology at Blake, along with being able to teach a different science course there that I wanted to teach. But teaching at Hopkins was great. But what I missed from that place, besides just this boiling pot of kids from all over, which was totally fun, the staff there was just tight. And the cool thing about the staff at Hopkins is those teachers come to Hopkins to make a career out of it and do really good things all the way through their career. I never taught with anyone at Hopkins, which I definitely saw at other schools that I taught at. Never taught with anyone who was just there to coast. They were there to do things and do it well and really grow kids. So it was a fantastic place to teach. And the teachers who are still there, who I knew, as a child, or at least was exposed to them in some way or another, were just great to me. So it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you named people that you taught with there who were teachers when we were in high school. So you crossed over.
Yep, for a few years. Yeah,
you entered the teacher's lounge, and it was okay for you to do that. That's an experience that not many people have. That is pretty unique.
I can't say I was ever in the teacher's lounge at Hopkins.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Same here.
No,
I was never in the teacher's lounge. Never.
Never. I can't think.
I've heard this about teachers. They say, there are teachers who go to the teacher's lounge and there's teachers who don't go to the teacher's lounge.
I never had time to lounge. I can't remember even eating lunch when I was there.
Brad always used to eat lunch at his desk.
I wasn't
ate at my desk, Dean. You're right.
Yeah, right. I wasn't a teacher or forget lunch, right? I wasn't a teacher who ever did it the same thing twice. There wasn't do you remember at North Junior High, you would get those worksheets that had obviously been run off 700 times and they were so light blue. And then they were copies of copies. And you're like, this teacher's been using this worksheet since the 1600s. Never did that. Every time I tried to make experiences that were brand new for the kids. And, I would hand back a test and do we have to give this back to you? I'd be like, no, that's yours, because no one's going to ever get the same test again. So it's always about what they were learning and how they wanted to learn it. But it meant that I worked my ass off, right? And that's one thing that's really different about working in corporate world now is I go to sleep when I want to. But I never realized, and there's a lot of teachers like this, how sleep deprived I was, because I would wake up early in the morning to get things, prepared, and I'd get home and I would work to make the lesson for the next day. Then we'd have dinner, and then everyone would go to sleep. And starting at about 11 till about 2 or so is when I would, I'd be reading papers and making comments back on everything someone missed on a test. I really wanted to do a good job with it, but I was tired.
You were also young.
I was, yeah, I still am 12.
I would agree.
Ramon, were you still at Hopkins High School when Dan returned there as a teacher? And do you have any observations about that situation?
You're in trouble.
Well, I first of all, I think that people must remember when Dan and Dean talk about teachers, and Brad probably would support me on this, is that they graduated in '88, and those were a very different staff that in the mid and late '90s, or even to the early 2000s. But my story about Dan is embarrassing to both Dan and myself. So
that's why we're here.
We are in front. It's winter, lots of snow. We're standing, the two of us standing in front of the mailboxes for the teachers. And he's getting his stuff and I'm getting mine. And I don't know why we started talking, but the conversation, because Dan is an environmentalist, turned to decorations in the yard or something. I don't know. And Dan made the comment that people put those steel deers. I don't know if they still exist, but there's these deers made out of whatever, iron or whatever, and they put them in the front of their houses. I said, yes, just like the one I have in front of my house. And then face felt about 10,000 feet down. But the truth of that was that my wife got him. I didn't even, she got the darn things, and I wasn't happy. I mean, I didn't particularly like him, but so I said, oh, poor Dan. Do you remember that story? No.
Do you still have them?
No, of course not.
Well,
I got
too
rid
bad.
of them as soon as I could.
Because
When
when
they
we,
had pink flamingos.
yes,
I have
Brad, you like
threatened
this.
to put pink flamingos, yes.
But when we bought the house that we're in right now, there was this gorgeous table in the dining room, and the house was a wreck, but the table was beautiful. So we told the buyers, the sellers, we said, "We'll take this house, and here's what we're offering, but we want the table." She said, "No, you can't have the table, but we're leaving the concrete deer." So we have one, and every year we dress it up, we change it, we sandblast it and repaint it. It's been a zebra. Right now it's a French bulldog, but it gets moved around the neighborhood, dressed up as different things. So my family's responsible for that. So if you still had it, I was going to come and change it for you.
No, and we moved to a
Give it some big
condo, so
teeth.
there's no yard anymore.
Oh, okay.
Brad, are you in Arizona?
I am in Arizona.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I saw the light coming through your window and thought, that's not Minnesota. This is what it looks like here.
We're in Oro Valley, which is about 40 minutes outside of downtown Tucson.
Ah,
I will be out there in
To the
Thanksgiving.
northwest.
Brad, I'll be out there in Thanksgiving. My in-laws live in Tucson.
Where, in Tucson proper?
Yeah, they're well, not proper. They're over by Tanque Verde.
Okay, well, I'll be in Minnesota for Thanksgiving.
I'll
miss you. We could have gotten together, had a cold beer.
Oh man.
Do you stay in Arizona most winter?
Yes. Well, most winters?
Most of the winter, and then
Why the hotel you think we live here? Get out of that damn cold Minnesota, Wisconsin. We love it. We love it. Even the heat of the summer, 116 degrees is still good. It's a dry heat, Ramon.
yes, I understand dry heat.
Yeah, okay.
Not the ones that we had.
Yeah.
Well, we have some comments from the peanut gallery. We have a lot of people watching who are really happy to see all four of you. And Brad and Ramon, we love your surprise visit. But Doug
Absolutely.
Robertson has shared some interesting questions, but we're going to take it to Dan, which is, Doug asked, have you coached any Olympians, Dan?
I've coached kids who have definitely been junior Olympic contenders. So they were skiing at the national level.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched many Olympians ski against my kids, sometimes beating them very handily, sometimes not. But over the years, there's been very many Olympians who I've definitely witnessed race. And I've had multiple teams do very well or win state, and individuals win state and do well, but never an Olympian myself, no.
Cool. Okay, Brad, I'm just throwing it at you since you're our surprise guest. Have you coached any Olympians?
No.
Okay.
No.
Me neither.
But it's nice to hear from Doug.
Yes.
I remember when Doug was brand new. He must have come in at 9th grade to North Junior High. Is that true?
He'll tell us. Yeah, 9th or 10th grade, he showed up. Yeah.
He was at North.
And he's Doug is an artist. He's a mural artist out in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, I follow his stuff. I was
So
just
another-
in bed. Oh my God, I should have found him.
Another
Well,
guy
so-
who's come through our show and a friend of ours who has talked to us about
And he
having
does
his roots in
beautiful work.
our
Yeah.
department. Yeah.
Nice
Yes.
work, Doug.
So Dan and everyone, just to remind everyone, there is a Google map of all of the KHOP88 guests.
Really?
Yes, so you can see we do not have the whole class there. It's a little perk. If you agree to come on the show, we'll put you on the map. And Doug is listening to me, says yes, ninth grade at North was his first year.
Yeah, I think we're probably in art class together, and when we met, is that true? Probably with Mel, actually. He was the
there's
9th grade.
So Brad, there's another North related question for you. I know Brad is coming on the show soon, but we're gonna ask you, did you ever teach art at North Junior High, Brad?
I did.
Oh, you
Let's see.
did?
Wait a minute. North. Did I miss going to North? I went to West. I taught at West. You know, we had the big cutbacks and everything. Declining enrollment. My minor is Phi Ed, so I actually taught sophomore co-ed, Phi Ed.
Oh God.
Part-time, yes. Oh God is right. It's the worst thing I ever did in my teaching career. And
sophomores.
Yeah. And co-ed, you know, the girls, they want to primp, you know, they don't want to do anything. And you get about 5 boys that want to control everything. And I mean, it was miserable. Yeah, I taught at West for a couple of years.
Thank you.
Part-time Phi Ed. I'd go from the high school art department. I changed my clothes and go to Phi Ed, change my clothes back. After lunch, I'd go to West.
Whoa.
I know it. Wall was right.
So we've gotten into some of this here a little, but I want to know if there's any other names that pop up. We ask everyone whether there are teachers who they had at Hopkins or anywhere along the line in the Hopkins schools who still stick with them. You know, Dean, you obviously mentioned Brad. Are there others that you still think about, classes that you remember or teachers that stuck with you?
Hugely Ramon. I don't know if, I mean, Ramon had so many kids, so many kids that I don't think that he would remember me, but I kind of went through a little bit of a rough patch there, and Ramon was always there with the hug, and I really appreciate, you know, him, Ramon being Ramon. I mean, that's all you can say. If you know him, you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, thank you from me to you, brother.
Dean, I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, do you have other names too to mention?
Oh, yeah. Besides the faculty in the art department, and of course Del Bosacker. You know, I was always I would not say I was torn between art and science, but I had dual loves of art and science. So those are my guys. The people who worked in the I don't remember names, unfortunately, like in the shop area, but especially around the graphic arts, you know, who gave me access to the darkroom, which I spent a tremendous amount of time in. And I had my own darkroom at home too, when I couldn't work at school and all that. But then when I went back, and I don't know if these teachers were there when we were kids or not, but working with Gary Gray and Gene Kremen were just absolutely amazing faculty and guys who I learned just so much in the world from. Again, 2 very different guys, but just amazing sage-like teachers. Do you know, Ramon, were they teachers when we were kids, or when I was a kid?
When you were in the high school, Gene wasn't there. Gary may have been in '88. I'm not sure, but that program that you talked about, which was the Kremen for English, Gray for the Phi Ed, and I can't remember who the other teacher was now. Which was environmental
there's a social studies teacher. There's
Yes.
a social studies teacher, and that varied a couple times.
Who
Brett,
that might have
Brett.
been.
It was Brett.
That's okay. Brett, exactly.
And English went back and
Kremen.
forth between a couple different teachers, Kremen and sometimes some others. But yeah, so that was a cool program. We had kids in the field doing environmental science.
That program was not only innovative, but it took a lot of time to put together. And it was controversial in that the funding for it. but I really truly believe was one of the best things that happened in the high school, because there were kids that were, I remember a student talking to me once about sitting by the river and having to write about the river, not only from the geological perspective, but also from the historical perspective. I mean, not too many classes, not too many places you get to mix those things like that class did.
And then after that, we would run the river in whitewater, and then we would do biological sampling. Yeah, so we would go to these places all around the state of Minnesota. We traveled by bike and whitewater and by foot, and did all kinds of crazy stuff with them. In any 40-day quarter, we spent up to 20 nights sleeping on the ground with those kids.
That's incredible. And so that you were part of that program.
Get the 4
and how
credits.
long did that last? Just a few years?
About 2 years, maybe 3.
Oh, no. I was at Hopkins for 7, and that program it may have been 5.
Was it? Well, I'm glad to hear. Of course, I'm not as old as Brad, but my memory is not all that. But there's not too many schools or academic programs that mix subjects like that. And the interaction.
You can do programs like that in private schools, like the High Mountain Institute in Colorado, but they'll charge you $40,000 for those 40 days.
Yeah.
But remember that this was in '88. I mean, this was not. It was innovative and creative, but imagine what it did to those kids' brains. Mm-hmm. And that's the most significant piece of all of that, because you were talking about art and the drawing and all of that. But here you had to really stretch your brain to encompass the writing, including the grammar and the descriptive of the river, the science, and the history behind it. So you were pulling several directions, and you had to sift that through your brain.
Yeah, I think that was 02 to 08. Yeah. What's that?
Oh, I was saying, I was picking up on the what you said about being outside and having the students outside by a river or camping. And we've had guests on talking about high school and junior high camping experiences at school. Dean, did you do any of that, like outdoor camping with a teacher?
No.
How about you, Dan, when you were in junior high or high school?
Oh, when I was in junior high, I did multiple summer trips with, who are those teachers now? Pam Kurtz and who was his partner in crime. But
did you go up north to the boundary
I think
water?
I paddled farther. We did like a 60-mile trip on the English River in northern Ontario. That was crazy. That was a good one that we did. And what else did I do in junior high? We did some other ones like that. I did a couple of Boundary Waters trips with school.
I just remember we would take a week and you would apply for it, but you would spend a week out at Carver Park, if you remember that, with Jim Gilbert. Yeah. And it was the same kind of thing. It was like every day was banding birds, observing deer. He would bring us out into the woods and say, sit there and I'll come back for you. And you would write down everything you observed. And that was a mind-blowing kind of experience too, of what am I supposed to do? Just sit here? And then after 10 or 15
that dude was a legend.
You start to get it. You learn it, I just wonder, once they started getting into teaching to tests, if those kinds of curriculum went away or not.
He ended up starting this Freshwater Academy program that I then continued at Hopkins, but it was absolutely his brainchild. And he worked for many, many years to get it going and to find funding, and then ended up kind of in semi-retirement at Gustavus, doing similar work there with older kids. But he was for sure my mentor, and there's no way I would have agreed to take on that program if he had not started it, because he was an absolute master. I mean, that dude's a legend.
Okay, we're kind of having a KHOP88 show without planning it. Just saying. That solves the problem. Okay, so Brad, do you have any questions for Dean or Dan?
Do I have any questions for him?
Yeah.
Well, how come they got so old? They were just little kids when I knew them.
Dean, do you want to answer this one?
No, I guess I don't have any questions. It's just my life is so enriched, having known people and taught people like these two here. Just very enriching. And with social media now, I'm in contact with a number of former students and almost every day, and it's just it's a wonderful thing. Yeah,
I echo what Brad says. Definitely, I echo exactly what Brad said.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that the expectation from students is that we would teach you, but in many, many, many ways, they were you the one that taught us.
Oh. I'm gonna share my screen. Dean was very kind to share a bunch of his
I see this.
Share a bunch of his photos, and I just want to share this one here.
Yes.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
This is great. So Dan on the right there with Dan, you and I did not know each other well in high school, but one thing I do remember about you is a magnificent mullet that you sported.
Who is who in this picture?
Okay, thank you. Jason, use your cursor.
Yeah.
Okay, there's Dan. Dan's on the right there, not wearing sunglasses. Yeah. Dean, well, not only that, but this is our graduation. You guys are staring into the sun. The future is in front of you. I mean, there's so much to love.
But there's something to be said. Like, I don't know who the heck it was, but somebody posted our graduation to YouTube. Have you guys seen this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm up there and I wore those going across like and the principal or whoever it was like shaking her hands, was all like this. And I just thought it was so cool. So
yeah.
Hilarious.
So Dean's in the middle, and then that's Scott Stansfield on the left there. But yeah, that's a great graduation picture right there. And again, from the days of no phones, no digital photography, some mom or dad or somebody shot that on film.
Well, Dean, do you have
to the drugstore or whatever and get it?
Yeah, he's got to show the other one though.
Do you have one that goes?
I got it right here, but
with Missy and Gretchen and
Let's see the hair.
Yeah, got to see the hair. Gretchen's fabulous hair.
All right,
Absolutely.
keep talking.
All right.
Okay, well, as you're looking it up, I'm going to announce the next guest. This is episode 73 of KHOP88. Episode 74 next Tuesday. We have the baseball team. It's going to be amazing.
Pretty good.
It's going to be amazing.
It's coming together.
What's going to happen on episode 88? That's what I want to know.
Oh.
Well, we haven't planned that far ahead. November 16th, Brad comes back as our superstar. Brad, we're so excited for you to be here. November 23rd, Monica Gillen was inspired to sign up, Brad, because of you. November 30th, we're looking for a special person. December 7th, Dr. Kim Cathings is zooming in from the University of Utah. She does really interesting research on cancer and communication. December 14th, the band is going to try and outdo the baseball team.
Will they bring their instruments?
Yes.
All right, here's that.
Okay.
Somebody sent something through Facebook with pictures of 88.
There you go.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, goodness.
This is a classic.
Man.
Okay, please use your cursor and we'll name names.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, starting on the left here, right? Dean, go ahead. You've got Jason Weber.
Jason Weber.
Yeah. Julie Grimes. Gretchen Wedmore.
The hair.
Missy Blatt.
Oh my God.
Scott Stanfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dean.
And myself. And why am I forgetting your name right now? Michelle Boley.
Michelle Boley.
And Dan.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think who took these photos.
Moms.
Jeff Pierce.
No way. What's it, Jeff?
It was Jeff and Kevin.
It's so funny about that whole thing, that moms thing. Dean and I have talked about this. Like when we were kids, I can't, and it's nothing negative about my parents whatsoever, but I don't remember my parents at any high school thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me either.
I think my parents showed up for like 5 minutes when I skied in like the state meet or something like that, because they're like, oh yeah, we had to give you a ride. We're going in for a slice. So different than how parents like.
But yeah,
Dan,
this is how I know it was either Jeff or Kevin.
I was raised by wolves. Oh yeah, there they are.
So that's what it was funny. Dan and I were talking. So Dan and I, Ramon and Brad don't know this, but Dan and I have been friends ever since high school. Like I just saw him back in July, so we've been friends for a long time. And what was interesting, we were trying to talk about like who we knew in Hopkins and all this other kind of stuff. But what was so interesting is that we knew a lot of people in Hopkins, but we hung out with all sorts of people at Blake. We had tons of friends there. We had friends at Edina, Benilde St. Margaret's, and then we were friends with a lot of people of the class above us and the class below us. And a picture about that is that everybody remembers Corey Rubin.
No.
He was the class above us. And then this is Chris Hansen.
Yeah, it is.
Who was the class
Chris is
below us.
1 year younger.
And I was friends with his brother. Yeah, I was friends with his brother, Jeff Hansen, who was in 87. And of course, that's me. So we were friends with like all sorts of people like outside of, Hopkins and stuff like that. So
was that a bottle of rum?
Probably, yeah.
I have a quick story about parents, which Dan, you'll appreciate. I was in a few plays, but I had a big role in one of our plays at Hopkins, and I remember basically telling my parents, like, this is when the performances are. You guys should come to one of the performances. And my dad asking me, well, so how many lines do you have in this?
Can I just come for them?
Like, is this really going to be worth our while, or are you just going to be out in the first act and then that's it?
Yeah.
Like, no, I have a lot of lines. You should come.
Where did you go?
We raise our kids so differently than our parents are like.
Completely the generation. I mean, growing up in sports and stuff. It was. I don't think.
Here's your keys.
Came to a soccer game.
I'll see you when you're 30 and you're not a child anymore. Now we get along great.
Are you pulling something out there, Dean? Is that the?
Yeah, I don't know if
photo, please.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but
that's quite a relic that you've got there in front of you, by the way.
Oh my God, we have so many photos. Dean, you and I are just going to have to sit and look through.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just do you guys remember like going to like Lake Harriet and hanging out? And,
yes.
That's
wait.
That's Jeff Hansen from 87.
Skelza.
That's Charlie Towns from 87. That's Kevin Skelza from Edina, and that's me. But Dan's probably over here. He probably took.
I may have taken the photo. Yeah. And now I just live 6 blocks from there, which is kind of funny. I never left the beach.
Yeah. But there's a particular photo I'm looking for. Let's see. And then
we haven't even gotten into like the whole going down to the lake scene. We've not even really talked about.
We have not.
For those who like, I still have fun with this today, so it's like you're not making fun of me or whatever, but it's just all like, this is the original photo that I got.
Yes, love it.
And so that's from our yearbook, our junior year yearbook, and I am holding my glass eye in my hand. And if you look at our Facebook page, it actually made the yearbook. So as an excuse to get out of class. And that's the English teacher, Mr. Borgedy.
Roman Borgedy.
Oh, a little closer. People have been talking about him so much.
Yeah, he's been brought up a lot.
He died in Colorado.
Was this a staged photo for a yearbook stunt? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool. Well, we are so grateful that all 4 of you joined us tonight. And it's extra special, Brad and Ramon, because we keep coming back to you and how much you inspired all of us. And look, Dan's a teacher, and how many careers you've impacted positively. We don't have the negative impacted teachers yet, but
We should get some of them online. Yeah.
okay, we'll work on it.
Here's a question for both Brad and Ramon.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of a loaded question considering that this is the class of '88. But was the class of '88 or the classes around us, including us, were we different than other eras or, you know, generations that you may have taught, and what was different about us?
You know, it all kind of melts together. 37 years in the profession, and they all kind of melt together. It's crazy. You have some kids you never forget, and they could be very top students or they could be not so good students, but you never forget them. And then there's some that just kind of go through the motions and you try to reach them, but you know, a lot of times you don't, and that's what you feel bad about. But I have to say, in my 37 years of teaching, I had a wonderful time. I love my students. I like to challenge them, harass them whenever I could. I have great memories of teaching. Yes, I'm really blessed.
Don't you just love running into former students?
Oh,
I especially love running into them when they introduce themselves. Hey, Mr. Trockman, I'm so-and-so. Oh, thank you for saying your name.
Right.
Because then I remember everything. But there's nothing harder than, you know, when one of your 14,000 past students comes up to you and says, hi, do you remember my name? You just
yeah, right. Oh, don't do that.
Well, to Dean's question, the class of 88, and I have said this numerous times already, but it was one thing that was very special in a sad way is the losses.
Mm.
There were 2 students in that class who died in a motorcycle accident.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in the high school's history that something like that had happened.
Really?
And so it was not just for the students, but I remember in those days, I was the chairperson of the crisis team, trying to bring about what is it that we can do to be supportive of those students. And so that is one thing that has always been in my mind, that in many ways that brought the class together. It made it, because those were 2 kids that circulated in many different groups of kids.
Yeah, they did.
They were not just with the art or the music or the theater heads or whatever. They circulated, particularly the young man whose name now escapes me. And interesting enough, he was my student, but I don't remember his name right now.
Jack and Nina.
Say that again.
Jack and Nina.
Jack Klingman, something like that. So that is one thing for me, but what forces in the universe got those kids together all in the 600 and some, I don't remember, the class of 88 is unknown to me. But if you go down the list, there are many, many, many successes in that. Lawyers, doctors, teachers, engineers, architects, medical. I mean, it's the professions represented are amazing. And I always,
a lot of people involved in very selfless endeavors too in that group.
Yeah. So there was a magic to those kids. There was something that brought all of those kids together. And to me, I had them as sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So I had them for 3 years as the social worker for all 3 classes. So then I got to know many, 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 many students. And I'm lucky because many of them remember me still and contact me and talk to me. So Dean, and then I am in Facebook, but if you look at it, the only reason why I'm in Facebook is that there's 400 and some kids from former classes that send me messages. So You can connect, and I'll take you to a beer then.
All right. Sounds
Okay,
good.
Because there's nothing that students like more than coming up to me and say, Ramon, let's go out for a beer.
Okay, I have to say one thing to Ramon. Ramon, this is a good maybe closing so that, and Dan and the Pay It Forward, Brad. So we had a neighbor, high school kid who had a problem last week. And there were 3 high schoolers in their masks in my living room. And I said, we need to talk to the high school counselor. It was Sunday night. And I'm like, Monday morning at 8 a.m., we're calling the high school counselor. And I called her and said, you need to talk to these kids, Ramon. And I know that they were going to take care of them. And it was because of you. It was not a Pay It Forward, but I just appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
We called because of you. Okay.
Good night.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for showing up.
It's time for my old fashioned now.
Oh, it's time for dinner. The dinner bell's ringing.
Right. Time for my dinner.
Thank you, Jason and Marty, for all your tireless work.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean and Dan. Really appreciate the photos. Baseball team next week.
Don't miss it. Next week, baseball. Bye.
Take
Nice
care.
Send me the link.